Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see y'all here. It's another Monday, another live stream. Hope y'all got your coffee or tea or water ready here. Bit of an unusual one today, or well, yeah, I guess it is unusual, and it's a little different from what I normally do here. Most of the live streams I've done before have been things where I kind of know what I'm making already and have done it before, many times. This one is not that. I had a choice today of doing one of two things. Either this little thing that I started yesterday on a whim, or I have a customer who is very patiently waiting for a full alligator card wallet. And both of them are somewhat fraught with peril in their own different ways. And ultimately, I decided to go with the one that where if I screw it up, I've only lost something that was for me rather than for somebody else. So for the gentleman who's very kindly waiting for his wallet, I'll be starting on it later today. But I just anytime you're splitting alligator, there's always great risk involved. In fact, I believe see if I can pull this out. Yeah, that's not. It's in here somewhere. I think that. Oh, that's not. Where'd it go? Hold on. It's in here somewhere. Keep it just for this reason. Oh, in any case, somewhere in here I have a beautiful piece of that indigo dyed blue crocodile skin with a bunch of holes in it from where I accidentally split it too thin. So there's always great risk involved in doing that. And although I've done it on camera before, I have not done it live. So I think I'll probably wait to do that one off of... oh, there's a rabbit in my yard. Hold on. A very cute cottontail rabbit in my yard. Sorry, rabbits are one of my weaknesses. Anyway, I decided to do that one off of the live stream. We're going to work on this one today. And this one here is something that I'm just kind of... I've had this idea in my head for a while now that I've wanted to do. And yesterday happened to be the day where I had the motivation to do it. I had told myself I was going to take the weekend as kind of a recovery weekend. I had done a lot of work through the week on some time-consuming project, and I was tired. But I have learned from my wife, it was her advice actually, she says, when that inspiration comes, you should not squander it, because it is very fleeting. So I decided to go ahead and actually do a little bit of work yesterday on what was supposed to be my day off. And I'm very glad I did, because I've ended up making something I think is very cool. Good morning, Bob. Good to see you. I'm shocked that you got your wallet today, but I'm very happy that you like it. I really did not expect you to get that until tomorrow. A marvel of modern postage, that is. I have sent that out Saturday morning, and you have it already. So absolutely remarkable. So I'm glad that you have it. I'm glad that you like it. As I said in one of my emails, you'd be surprised how many conversations and commissions I have where the email chain will be 30, 40 or more emails, and I'll send it out and then never hear from anybody, whether they even got it or liked it. So I can only assume that they were happy. So for you to be there telling me I got it and I love it, that makes me very happy to hear. So thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoy it. It was a fun one to make. So with this one here, another fun one to make, I'm hoping, is going to be this one. So this one here is done. I've never done this method before. It's called marqueterie. Sure, I'm butchering the pronunciation of that. It's French, and that is my weakness. So I'm not very good at pronouncing those words. But in any case, it's kind of ironic. We had a challenge in our Leatherworking Discord for doing this exact thing about a month or two ago, and I did not participate in it. Kind of wishing I had now, because I really enjoyed doing it, and there were some amazing entries in there. But this one here is done in that style. And what that means is it is consisting of several different layers and inlays of leather. So what we have here, there's a piece of the number 5 is cut from black, oh, there goes my godmother. The number 5 is cut by hand from a piece of black Botero, and it's inlaid in the center of 2 layers of Salpa and white chev, because I didn't have any white Botero, I only had the white chev, so I decided to go with that. And I actually kind of like it that way. I like the bit of texture that gets, but then that's cut out by hand from there and inlaid into 3 pieces of, 2 pieces of green and 4 pieces actually, because 2 pieces of yellow Botero. That whole assembly is inlaid into there, and it's glued and stitched onto a piece of 0.5 millimeter Salpa on the back. And I debated whether or not I wanted to stitch this, but ultimately I decided, even for how much I trust glue, I decided it probably makes more sense to do that. And my wife actually had a good point about that. She said the stitching on it makes it look more like it is actually a piece of, it is made of leather. You know, it indicates to you that this is a leather piece rather than something that is just printed or painted on there. So I think she had the right, she kind of hit that one on the head when she pointed that out. So I'm quite glad I stitched it, because now not only do I get that effect, I also have the security of knowing it is very well bonded, both physically, you know, mechanically and chemically with the glue. What we're going to do for the interior, you may have seen I posted a picture of this last week. I'm working on a prototype of something, which I'm carrying myself now. But I went ahead and did this myself. So this is revisiting something I did many, many years ago. Those of you who've been around that long, you'll know that I did, probably about 5 years ago, I did a series of wallets that were based on the British racing green concept. And they had, on the inside, a perforated brown interior with whiskey smooth on top of it. And that idea was given to me by the one and only Mr. Ben Geisler. I made that first one and gave it to him, because it really was it was a stunning piece, even for somebody of my relatively beginner skill level. That I was very happy with. It was definitely something that kind of catapulted me to reach for better things there. So I've taken this one here. This is all brown Botero, and I took the time to hand perforate this one with my scribe, and that was less than entertaining, but it did work. So it's good to know that I actually can do that. I think I'm going to look into either having a Rocky Mountain Leather punch a bunch for me with their big CNC machine, or potentially have a punch made to do it. I don't know yet. Either one is viable. I'm kind of waiting to hear some numbers from them on what they say it will cost me to have them do it. But yeah, each hole hand punch there in a through a paper template there. So I basically tape the paper template down, and then poke through every single one, and then take my skiving knife and go across the back and take off any that's excess buildup back there. So yeah, thank you, John. It worked out quite nicely. So anybody in chat whom I've missed, I see you have the two Roberts here, so it's good to see you here. John, good to see you. Anybody else that I've missed? Good afternoon. Good to have the boys back together. So we're going to go ahead and put this together. And as I was mentioning before, generally my streams are with things that I know how to put together and have done many times already. This one is not that. This is only the second time I've made this particular pattern at all, and it's with something a little bit awkward that I have struggled with in the past. Namely, this piece of salpa, you'll note, does not run all the way to the edge. And the reason that is I want that to be, you can just kind of catch the light on it right now. I want it to be a sort of a padded build-up effect. And I haven't quite mastered the measurements for that yet, so I'm kind of working on doing that. So this here is the kind of thing where I'm going to be feeling my way through it here and explaining what I'm doing and figuring it out as I go, I guess, for all of you here. So you'll get to see a little bit of my thought process as I work through this this problem that I have to deal with here, and hopefully it will turn out nice, but there is the possibility that it may not. So we may go through the stream here today, and I may end up with something that I am completely unsatisfied with, and that I have lost a lot of time on, because obviously this took me the better part of yesterday afternoon. Now I have to put it together, and like I said, there's risk that it may not work out the way I want it to. But that's the way it goes. And many people I know struggle with that. And it, I try to show my mistakes to people whenever I can. Obviously I try not to make any of them, so thank God I don't have too many to show, but I do have them, and I try to show them whenever I can, because it's important for people to understand that when you're doing this, nobody's perfect. You know, everybody's still learning how to do this, regardless of whether you've been doing this for a couple months or a couple years or a couple decades. You're always learning every time you do something, and you're going to screw up. It is going to happen. You're gonna waste time on something, and you're gonna be mad about it. And just accepting that that is simply the way of it, that is the way you get better, is important. So I try to tell people that as often as I can, so that people don't get bummed out by it. It's important to not be self-deprecating when you screw up, and understand that it just happens. Sometimes the best laid plans and everything don't matter. You're going to make a screw up, and it's going to upset you, and you're going to be pissed off for the rest of the day, and the sun will rise again tomorrow. You just have to move on with it. So I hope that if I do screw up something today, I hope that those of you who have dealt with this, in the past, can take some solace from the fact that everybody does it and understand that even though we talk about it, it still does happen. So I hope that this is beneficial to those of you who struggle with that, because I know I definitely did early on. By force of will and by doing as much of it as I possibly could, I kind of worked through most of the problems I have with that, to the point now where generally I can sit down and make something, and usually it works out okay. May not be fully to my liking, but I at least can say, well, this is good enough to where it's fine. Very rarely do I have anything these days where I actually am so disgusted that I throw it in the trash, but it does still happen. It happened earlier this year when I was screwing around with a new material, and I was so unhappy with it, I literally took it and I threw it away. So, and in my drawer, I have the bone pile of things that I was unhappy with that were not bad enough to be thrown out, but were not good enough to be kept and shown to anybody. So we have that too. What I have to do here, I guess actually getting into it, I've got a piece of brown material. This is just a regular brown, and this actually is a good example. This is something I had an order a couple of weeks ago that was going to use this for the exterior piece, and in the process of skiving it on the bell skiver, I skived through it on the ends here, and I was very upset because I had wasted a piece of leather fully this long. It was actually, I cut these ends off, I used just the center of it, but I was annoyed that I had ruined it and had to cut another one. But I knew at some point I would need this piece, so even though I couldn't use it for that project, I stuck it in the scrap bin, and I knew at some point there would come a time when I would be able to use it for something else, and this was that time. So I was very frustrated at the time of having, quote-unquote, ruined it, but here it is in use today for something else, and everything's perfectly fine. So if you have pieces where you've quote-unquote, destroyed them or broken them, hold on to them. If they're large enough to where you can use them for something else, I knew that even though I couldn't use it for a full wallet back, I might be able to use it for an interior, or if worse came to worse, I could get a couple card slots out of it for whenever somebody came along and ordered something using this color. So all pieces have a use. Everybody's use for scrap differs, and somebody was asking in chat the other day, I have all this veg tan scrap, what do I do with it? And in my case, I use it for, I test out, my creasing iron to make sure the temperature's right. I'll run it through the bell skiver to make sure that it's not going to eat what I'm going to do, or I'll, test foil stamps on it. That's my use of scrap. Everybody's is a little bit different, so this ended up being a scrap piece that will be perfectly acceptable for use for a full product. And you can see even, it got kind of dinged up a little bit in the scrap drawer there. If you have pieces of leather that are like that, where you have little surface defects and stuff like that, you're still able to use it for things, because in this case, it's going to be covered up by our card slots. Our card slots are going to completely cover that. The only thing that's actually visible is this part in here, and it's perfectly fine. So find a way to maximize your material when you're working with that. You'll use a lot less of it. You'll find that there are plenty of ways to make use of something that is not ideal for some uses and perfectly fine for something else. So I've gone ahead, I've got all of the individual pieces cut out. And this is actually a pretty simple wallet. There's not a whole lot going on with it. There are just the two T slots in here, and then the two card slots going over the top of it there. So this is what it'll end up looking like when it's all put together. We're going to have that nice kind of dark brown contrast in the center. And the idea behind this that Ben had for the wallet I did years ago was that we've got the British racing green on the outside. And on this one here, we have the dark brown interior with the perforation. The perforation's important, because it kind of looks like, when you combine it with the smooth leather here and the perforated darker brown in here, it looks kind of like an automobile interior. So I figured with going with the racing theme on this, with the Jim Clark Lotus colors, I thought we would revisit that, because it was a very good outcome at the time, and I wanted to do more of that. I've been struggling to find more creative ways of making the things that I make, and this just kind of hit me yesterday, so good. Gone 5 ounce seems too bit of an edge. 10 ounce, not 5. Not sure what you're getting at. Big of an edge. You've lost me, John. You'll have to run me by that one again. Nothing here is 5 ounce. This is all 0.8 millimeter here. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna glue some pieces down first. The T slots need to go down first, so I've got those already marked out with my template here. I'm going to take my scribe, get in and scuff the surface. So I've asked in chat what everybody's favorite racing is. Let's see what we've got here. So we have, not quite overwhelmingly, Formula One and IndyCar, and I could only do 4 choices there, so I would have liked to put drag racing in there too, because that's actually a big thing here in Youngstown. We have the Quaker State drag race out here that people still go to quite a lot, and it's very neat that we actually still have that automotive culture out here. But somewhat unsurprisingly, I know because we have so many European viewers, Formula One came in top, with NASCAR a close second, which surprised me. I generally don't find that so many people are into NASCAR. I know my dad loves it, and I tried to get into it, but I can't find the drama that he finds in it. And then we have rally racing, and finally, motorcycle or motocross racing. The trailing in there. I would have voted for rally racing. I find that to be the most interesting. I have a rally racing sim that I dabble with here and there, and I'm not good at it, but I enjoy it. I love watching those guys do it. Some of the stories about those guys and how they race and how they do it are just the stuff of legend. The Group B cars and the guys doing it in the early 60s, or early and late 60s with, no traction control, just nothing, just sheer balls and driving skill. Just incredible to think that people could do that. I'm especially fond of the Ayrton Senna documentary. Very good watch if you haven't seen it yet. I've only recently come to appreciate motorsports and car culture in general, which is kind of funny, having coming from an automotive painting background like I did. It never really interested me much when I was younger. I just couldn't get into it. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is I'm not. I appreciate mechanics, and I appreciate mechanical things, and I appreciate the beauty behind mechanical principles, especially the things that make cars work. But it took me a while to learn about that and really get into it. Ultimately, I think what inspires me more when I think about cars is I was, funnily enough, watching regular car reviews on YouTube. His focus on not so much what the car is or the details of the car itself, but rather what it means to people in certain times. And that really kind of got me thinking about, as a history nerd. It is if you want to experience a certain period of time, you have to walk in people's shoes and things like that, and experience the mundane things they did. And driving a car or an older car is a great way to do that. Just the difference between starting up an old 60s or 70s car versus the instant response you get from starting any modern car gives you an appreciation for that. When was the last time you had to fight to get your car started versus my 75 Lincoln, which is in fantastic shape. It's only got 20,000 miles on it. It's beautiful. I have a problem with the carburetor where the gas will bleed out of it or evaporate out of the bowl, and I have to fight to start things. I have to fight to get fuel in there. Sometimes I got to go and hit it with a shot of ether and things like that. And when does anybody have to do that today? There's so much. The engineering has progressed so much on that, but that was for some people that was daily life with cars during that time. And you get to appreciate just those little things about it. And driving it around, you'll get people telling you just unbidden stories about my dad had that car. I remember riding in that car as a kid and things like that. And it's fun. It's fun to get to experience that. And that got me more interested in cars and car culture in general. It kind of led to my interest in it today. So there are many people who know a lot more about it than me. I'm very much a dabbler in it, but I like thinking about that, and I like thinking about what was it like to have this car when it was new in its day. I enjoy that about driving my car. Youngstown is fortunate because we have such a large car culture here still. on any given day when it's nice outside, you will see just old cars just out driving around, lovingly maintained and things like that. So it's very nice to get to see that. You generally hear about that, on the West Coast or in Texas or things like that, but it is alive and well here in the Midwest. Even in the Rust Belt and in the salty winters that we get here, they're still here and they're driven daily. So that's that's a very cool thing to get to have. Yeah, John, the gentleman who bought the black and white ring lizard wallet some months ago, I drove. He was actually in my hometown, so I drove my Lincoln out and brought my little briefcase that I made to him, and had a little customer consultation. It was very cool. So, and it's funny, Matt. That as well. I remember as a kid, I remember seeing them here and there because there were still a lot more carbureted cars on the road when I was younger, and never I haven't seen somebody pushing a car in years. The only times I've ever pushed a car, I've probably pushed as many cars as anybody at this point, just moving them around my shop where we get the old ones in that just won't start and you got to push them in the paint booth. It is it is a marvel of engineering how good they are now. Just the little things like, and it shouldn't be a little thing that it should start every time, but it is, because like I'll get the Lincoln to start every time, but it's a fight, you know. And again, think about that. When did you ever have to fight to start your car? My mother talks about she had a Dodge Dart Swinger, and it had there was I think her distributor cap was cracked, and it would get moisture in it, and it would the car would just stall if it rained and water got up under the hood. She would have to take pull over to the side of the road, basically dead stick, park it, pop the hood, pull the distributor cap off, wipe it out with a rag, dry it out, dry all the contacts and everything, and put it back on, and then the car would run. When the hell does anybody do anything like that? Like that isn't a thing that you do anymore. And she unfortunately never realized that she could just replace the distributor cap and not have to do that. But little things, I guess. I have to stitch these down, so I'm going to grab some thread. I think what I'm going to do, I talked with my wife about this per her suggestion. I think I'm going to stick with the green thread on the outside. So we're going to do this all in racing green thread. Let me grab it here. I remember we had a Mercury Grand Marquis that had been my grandfather's car, and he handed it down to my dad and my mom. I remember riding in the back seat of that car. I remember standing on the transmission tunnel in the back seat because I was just a little guy, and I would put my arms up and rest. I'd have my arms braced on the two headrests, and I'd just stand on the transmission tunnel and just look out the front windshield. And I remember of course the classic experience of Grandpa putting you in his lap and letting you quote unquote drive the car, doing 60 on the highway, things like that. I mean, it probably still happens, but you don't hear about it anymore. So different times. Matt, this is something I know I've talked about with you, I think. But I've heard the scuttlebutt the other day that Ford, I think it was Ford and GM had both put in patent or trademark requests or something like that for a. This is what I've been saying this was going to happen, but apparently they're trying to seek. That's what it was. They were seeking approval for road tests for a vehicle with no steering wheel. And that, I think, is going to be the game changer. I've always said that when the big automakers come out with a car that it's going to cost around $15,000 and it's going to have no steering wheel, that's going to be the change right there. That's when you could point back to that and say that's when everything became different. I think that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I really do. I know there's much to do about Tesla's autopilot and all the flaws in it, and I think Tesla deserves all of the criticism it gets, but I do give them credit for at least pushing the narrative forward on some of this stuff. And I think that we're going to see some big changes here with cars in the next couple of years. And I have a feeling that I don't think it'll be my generation. I have a feeling that maybe Generation Z might be the last generation to grow up to where getting your driver's license is the rite of passage. I think it may end up being that we finally get to a point where cars are they are good enough to drive themselves, and suddenly, as soon as it's competitive and safe to do so, nobody will want to drive anymore. Everybody will want the convenience of getting in the car and either taking a nap or reading a book and doing other productive things rather than watching the road. And I think that's going to be a very big shift. That's my thought. What do you think? Am I crazy? Let me know. Stream ended up being much more car-centric than I thought it was going to be. But it was such a large part of my life for the past 20 years, I still find myself involved in it. John, you're right. Green is the best choice for this one. That's enough about me. What have you guys been working on? Anybody got anything good? Any good projects going on that they've started over the weekend or over the past couple days? Really, it's just been this here and what you saw on my Instagram. I would show you on the stream, but I sent them all out in the mail on Saturday. But I was very pleased with how that bottle opener cover turned out. Somewhat of an unusual thing to do. I recorded that in a Instagram reel, posted it. I'm going to be posting the still photos probably later today or tomorrow there. Very unique project that one was. I was amused. I was getting ready to mail that one out, and the gentleman had sent me. There was an original cover that I copied. The design was good enough to where I really couldn't improve on the design of it. I could only improve on the materials. I had his original copy there with me, and I had everything packaged up and ready to mail out. And I was standing in line at the post office, and I realized I had packaged it without putting his original cover back in the box. I was literally next in line to give my packages to the post office attendant, and I realized that. I had to drive all the way home, cut open the package, put it in there, and then right when I was about to leave again, the mailman showed up, so I was able just to give it to him. So that saved me from having to drive back. But I found it humorous that I'd gone all that way really for nothing. I could have just waited there and been done. Go ahead and stitch the bottoms in on this. Now, as far as figuring out things on this wallet, what I really have to figure out is going to be the alignment of that padding on the back. That's where I'm going to have the difficulty. I'll show you what I mean. But basically, I have to have that padding perfectly centered to where when I punch my stitches through, it comes through equidistant on all sides there. If you look at it, you can see the padding is in about roughly 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. That's another thing I have difficulty with. I have trouble keeping that distance consistent. So that's something I need to practice with and work on. But also, I punch holes from the inside out, because I like to have them aligned with the tops of my card slots and things like that. So I'll be punching basically blind. I have to trust that I'm holding the chisels in the right way to where they're going to come out exactly where this salpa meets that batero there. So it's a little awkward to do, and I've never quite got it perfect. I've got it close, but never perfect. So we're going to see how well I do with that today. I had originally, probably the smarter decision would have been to just run the salpa all the way to the edge and paint the edge. But I kind of wanted to do a burnished edge on this for reasons I don't fully remember. I chose to try and do this. I'm fearing, my fear is that I may have tried to pack too many things into one basket. It would have been fine to just do, marquetry, and another one with the padding, and then at some point down the road put them together, but I've kind of taken a gamble to put them both into the same project. So we'll see what happens. There are ways around it if things go horribly awry. But I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic that it's just gonna work out. So we'll see here. I know my good colleague, Mr. RDB from Northlift Belts, would admonish me for stitching these by hand and not using a even a basic, old Singer machine. But I kind of, I don't know, I'm so used to doing it by now. I market these as hand stitched. It feels like it would be a bit disingenuous to do that. But we'll see. I think a sewing machine is in my future for certain things, not for my wallets at least, but I want to get back in bag making again. And it's just, it takes so much time to hand stitch them that I don't know, I feel like a machine would be a better choice for me and allow me to keep up with my other orders. So talking about screwing up, I almost knocked over my glass of water with my hammer. That would have been something. Yeah, no real major plan for this stream, just kind of going along and seeing how this one comes together. Almost done with this D-slot, and then actually that's it for the interior, other than just gluing down the outer card slots on. Then we'll actually be ready to join those two pieces together and see if this is going to work or not. Back stitch. It's supposed to rain today, I believe, which is something we rather sorely need here. I'm looking forward to the conclusion of summer. Summer is my favorite season. I think I more associate that with summers as a kid. Just don't do heat the same way I used to, I guess. I'm looking forward to getting back into some low 80s temperatures here. The one big flaw with my Lincoln is that although it has air conditioning, I have to recharge the compressor with R12, which I actually have a bunch of, but I haven't got around to doing that yet. For a time, it had no HVAC at all, like no blower, no heat, nothing. There was just nothing happening when I would adjust the automatic temperature control. And I had it at the shop one day, and I had nothing to do, and I was like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna take a couple minutes and diagnose this and see if I could figure out what the hell's wrong with this thing. And with anything as complicated as that system, it could be anything. It could have been any number of things. But I decided I was sitting there thinking of all the possible problems it could be. I was like, well, it's not going to be this. It's never this, but we'll try it. It's the simplest one. I thought maybe Perhaps it's a fuse. Maybe a fuse has gone bad. So I pull out the shop manual and I figure out which one is which. Okay, it's 15. I get down under the dashboard, and what to my surprise do I see? Right in number 15, which even has the label ATC, Automatic Temperature Control, no fuse at all. I went across the street to CarQuest and bought a $2 fuse, put it in, and instantly the blower came on. All the automatic temperature controls work. Everything works fine. Literally, somebody had just taken that fuse out for no reason and never put one back in. So all that system works now. Like I said, the problem is it being almost 50 years old. It seems that at some point the R12 has either bled out or somehow evaporated out of the system, which is concerning because it's a closed loop system. It shouldn't do that. I've got a little bit of diagnosis to do with figuring that one out, but I can recharge it if I need to, and I should have air conditioning. It always makes me laugh how that was such a large deal for that car that it came with air conditioning standard. There was no option for it. They just all had them. Again, when was the last time you got into a car that didn't have air conditioning? All right. So here's our slots here, and I like the way the green looks against the whiskey there. Really, the biggest concern for using the green is to not interrupt the flow of this backside, but it also looks quite nice against the brown there. Whiskey Pater is one of those colors where almost all colors look good with it, and it's just kind of an oddball like that. It's the one color that I think everybody should have in their stock, because if you need something that will work with just about any color, this is it. This is the color. Go with whiskey. Scribe some trace lines here just to know where to scuff marks. Here. Scuffing all around the outside edge. We're going to glue these pockets down, and we're going to glue the interior to the outside. Then we'll see how well I can punch that. That's kind of an unknown element. We'll see what happens. This might work, this might not. As usual, any questions about what I'm doing? I realize I'm a little quieter on this stream today than usual. Like I said, I don't usually do this kind of thing where I'm figuring it out as I go, but if I'm quiet, it's just because I'm thinking. I'm going to try to think out loud more if I can, but sometimes I forget. So if you hear me and I'm sitting here going, and I'm not saying anything, just holler at me. Sometimes a man needs to be reminded. As usual, we glue down the outside card slots. We're going to do that over top of cards in the middle here. That lets us avoid the card slots fighting excess tension. And that also lets us kind of take a look at that. So I've placed this perforation here so where it should be kind of framed by the top edge of the cards as they sit in there. I think that looks quite nice. There you go. Good view of it right there. I like that. I like the way that looks. Using, again, my usual, the Seiwa water-based glue for this. When I'm working with veg tan like this, I like to use the Seiwa glue. Number one, it bonds very effectively to this leather, but number two, one of the problems I find with the Aquilum, so the contact glue, or at least in the way I use it because I prefer to use so much glue, I get buildup on the outside edges there, and it makes it difficult to burnish through. It's perfectly fine to paint over, but it's difficult to burnish. So I try to stick to this anytime I've got something that I know I'm going to burnish the edge of. Because I know even if I get a little bit of excess on the outside, it's not going to cause me problems when I go to burnish that edge. Taking my glass slicker and working that down, and working this over top the edge of that card there. Really get it kind of formed around it. out. We'll do the other one now. Okay. As you can see, all my colleagues always point out I am not shy with the glue use, especially up here at the top edges here. You notice I've got a ton up there. I like to have a lot of glue there to make sure that that's the highest stress point of the wallet there, because when you got to figure when you're putting your cards in and out, you're putting the stress right on the top edge there. So you want that to have as strong of a bond as you possibly can. So a lot of glue. I use the double stitch there, more for aesthetics than anything else, but having that little bit of extra thread is a little bit of extra mechanical bond strength. Oh. All right. There's our interior there. It's going to be joined this. Now this here, like I said, this is what this pattern is. If you don't know, this is from Jim Clark's Grand Prix car, the Lotus, the typical Lotus green and yellow color pattern. Hell of a driver, Jim Clark was. Shame what happened to him. Those guys racing back in those days were really taking their lives into their own hands when they did that. Just amazing to think that anybody would do that. So now I've kind of got to figure out, again, I have this cut to size. This one, as you can see, is cut oversized. You can see all the excess hanging off the edges there. I've got to kind of figure out how to line these up to where they're going to work. I don't know if I want to trim that now or trim it later. Another thing I have to figure out is quick test fold here. I think that looks good. Good, okay. I think I'm going to trim this shape. Yeah. And I'll lay this over top of it. I'm going to trace the pattern. I'm going to trace it directly from this. I'm going to make sure I get the right. See, I've got a little bit of a flat in there. I need to clean that up some. Be done a little bit nicer. But I can't trim that back too far because I have this padding back. I want to get around that. I wonder if I can part maybe. Trim it. Let's see. I wonder if I can get in with my scissors and trim that back a little. Got to be very careful doing this because this yellow is thin. It wouldn't take much for me to just cut right through the yellow too. Kind of trying to work my scissors. Trim this scalp back a little. This is the part that I always have. I've had to do this almost every time I do one of these. I haven't quite figured out the best way of getting these just right. It's something I want to practice with. I think that's as good as I'm going to get with that. I think trying to do more is just going to cause me more headache. That's actually going to fix. Let's see. That. I'm going to do this with the white gel pen, actually. That way, if I have to erase anything, wipe it off. Yay. And very lightly tracing the exterior shape of this with my white gel pen. Just trying to get more or less final shape of that. Okay. Yeah, I think that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to trim this. I'm going to trim this to shape here, and then join them. Actually, I don't want to use. I want to use that ruler. I'm going to use my flexible ruler. Oh, there's the top edge. Chat might not be updating. I don't know. Now I don't know if a bunch of people just said something all at once, or if it just came through now, but it looks like chat might not have been updating, so forgive me there. Wow, yeah, the chat definitely did not update. It missed like 10 minutes of chat there. Let me take a minute. Let me take a minute and read through the chat here. See. Yeah, right after John said green is the best thread choice on this, it looks like the chat quit updating. At least for my end there, so go figure. Let's just take a quick look here. Matt says Apple was the first to put that idea out there. It's an interesting thought. I'm curious to see. I'm not a fan of Apple, but I'm curious to see what they do with this car they're going to do. And I can't recall. They just stole someone's designer. It wasn't Volvo. Maybe it was Volvo. I don't know. But they just took somebody's chief designer. I don't know who it was there. I'm curious to see that. And it does raise the question: is will people own a lot of cars, or will those just kind of be cars that are out there as just a free Uber? Who knows? Robert says yeah, brain not engaged driving. Yeah, we have enough of that already, so we'll see. Bob says the Jetsons are coming, self-driving through the air. I don't know about through the air, but down the road probably. Self-driving problem, yeah, very curious. So yep. So let me know when you hear me responding to this. It looks like the chat just now updated. I thought it was awfully quiet. I was like, oh man, this is I'm not gonna do this again. This is a dead stream here today, but I'm glad to see it must have just been a hiccup on YouTube's end. Go figure. I'm just maybe the poll was screwing with it. I'm gonna end the poll and see if that's doing that. New projects, blue exterior wall, it's turquoise interior. I'd like to see that one. Terrence, thanks for hopping in here. Good to see you. Hello, Hilo. Nice to see you there. So hopefully the chat is good now. I don't know what happened there. I had no idea that it wasn't updating. I figured you guys were just being quiet and bored, so I'm glad to hear it wasn't me. So again, let me know when you can hear that. Hopefully the chat is resolved now. Just checking my alignment there. Okay, that's good. So for those just joining, again, this one here is a little unusual. I'm just kind of figuring this one out as I go, which I don't normally do on stream. And again, forgive the lack of interaction there. Apparently the chat was delayed for some reason. Thanks a lot, YouTube. Not cool. Take a look, maybe. Drop a message in chat there, just in case it's still not coming through. Uh-oh. Here's trouble. Yeah. Here you. Look at you, big boy. I thought you were going to come out sooner. Yeah. I thought you'd be out here within the first 10 minutes. No, it took you almost an hour. You're so white that you're whiting out the camera. The camera cannot even capture the whiteness of your beautiful fur. What are you doing? What do you think you're doing here? You here to cause trouble? Cause trouble? You look like you might be. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's very cute. You're very cute, but you're a troublemaker. You know it. Oh, no, no, you don't. Uh-uh. No. Maybe you can sit on the chair. Maybe you can be a good boy and sit on the chair. Nope, you're immediately off. No. Here. No dice. Yeah, the 35 to 40-second delay on chat, that's pretty typical. At least it's not 20 minutes like it was now. So I went for a good 15, 20 minutes with nothing there. So if it's 30, 40 seconds, that's pretty normal. I run it on a pretty high bit rate rather than a lower bit rate for quicker interaction. So I think the 30-second delay is acceptable, if annoying. But you're going to have to go out there back into the house. You can't be out here. I'm doing something I haven't done before. I don't even know what I'm doing. You're just going to cause trouble. You're going to cause trouble for your own purposes. Not even for a good cause, just for selfish reasons. Don't fool me. I know what you're on about. I know what you're here for. So bad. So bad. Alright. We'll find your mother. Alright, the cat has made his presence known. Okay. Let's see what we've got here. We're going to do some test fitting here. Once again, I've just trimmed the interior mostly to the shape of the exterior, close enough where I think I'd be comfortable gluing it, and I can finer tune it from there. Let's see here. Actually, no, I'm going to do. So check the fit. I'm going to clamp these together. See how it's. Definitely some fitment issues here. There's always the risk of trying something really, truly new. It's a good possibility it may not work out. I think what I'm going to do, so I don't have this quite, I have something different between the exterior and the interior, some difference of line there. What I can do, I'm kind of stuck on this exterior. I can't really change much on it, again, because of that padding that's glued down there and just the nature of it, but I can adjust the interior a little bit. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm just going to accept it. I'll accept that they're not perfectly the same. But choose to trim the interior to the exterior shape. Whatever difference of size they're got, I'm just going to accept it, trim one to match the other, and I can only really trim one of them. That's going to be the inside. I just want to make sure that I've got. Bigger concern is going to be I have right now. Okay, I know what I know how it's got to be. What I'm looking at right now, obviously these two are different in length because one has to fold around the other one. That usually ends up being, it needs about an extra 1/8 inch to 3/16, sometimes 3/8 of an inch additional length on the outer than the inner to make it wrap around there. And looking like I may have given that a little bit too much. I may have made this a little bit too long compared to the inside of this. I have to trim this edge a little bit. I can only do that on really one side. Maybe on this side here. I have been asked periodically to do RFID protection. I've never done it. Walletopia has a pretty good video on the reasons why that's just kind of bunk. But mostly I haven't done it just because it adds an extra step of complexity to do that. And generally, most people never ask for it. So if somebody asks specifically for it, they're like, hey, I really need this in there, I'll be happy to do it. But so far, nobody has needed it enough to where they would say, oh yeah, go ahead and do it. It's worth the extra cost. So most people do not seem to be concerned by it. I think it's more a sales gimmick than anything else. Now, there are some folks in cybersecurity who may have a different opinion on that, but as far as I go, that has been my general take on it. I think it's been more a marketing ploy than anything else. What I'm doing now, I'm just taking my scissors, I'm just trying to trim back this padding a little bit if I can. Give myself some extra trim allowance on this. Trying desperately not to cut through the outside of it. Like I said, I know there's an easier way of doing this, I just haven't figured it out yet. We're learning together on this one, I guess. If I was smart, I would have not glued this edge so securely. Would have left some more breathing room for me to be able to adjust it. I'd even need to come back further still. Maybe I can take it back on this edge. A little bit more room here to trim that line back some. Very inelegant display today. But I think it's important to show that not everything I do just goes together right away. Some things have to be fought. Some things are kind of messy. So if you're out there and you're learning how to do it and you think, oh my god, Wyatt would never be stuck here trimming with scissors something that he's already glued together. No, it happens. I think the truth is it happens to everybody. Just we choose not to show it when we're able to avoid it. Let's see here. Taking that one back. Back a little bit more. I've taken almost, I think in total I've taken about a 1/16 of an inch off from this padding here. I think that should be enough to let me trim some of this back. Hopeful. I'm going to see if I can get, I'm going to go on this edge one more time. See if I can get just a little bit more off of it. Like I said, it is glued very securely to these outer pieces here, so I have to try very carefully not to go through. Again, I realize not the most thrilling of content here today, but I think the end result will be worth it. If I go very slowly, I can just lift up enough to get the scissors under there without piercing clean through the yellow there, because the yellow is actually quite thin. Really dense bit of glue right there. Does not want to give. Kind of nipping away at it, just lifting it up little by little, working it back. There we go. Little bit by little bit, working it back towards the edge there. There we go. That's good. Able to get a little bit more off that edge, like that. I think that might be enough. Might be enough to let us do this. Okay. I think we're gonna go ahead with that. Here I can trim that a little bit nicer. Probably against my better judgment, I think I'm gonna go ahead and try it again. I think I'm gonna try to take even more off, clean this edge up a little bit more, because I don't like the curve that I have on this. It's a little bit clumsy. I think I can do better. Ended up with kind of a flat spot in the center there that I didn't like. That means having taken that in, I'm going to have to come in, round this out some more. Isn't too bad. That's doable. This little bit right here. Looking okay. These are they're Kai, Kai scissors from Japan. They were gifted to me by a friend. They are just phenomenal. I've a set of 3 of them. This is the teeniest, tiniest little one. I have a much larger one that I use. If you look in that reel I posted the other day, I was cutting the alligator with it because it was easier to work the scissors around the curve than the knife. So, not cheap, but phenomenally sharp. There we go. I think just a little bit more down here. Now, why am I going to such trouble to get this right? I mean, obviously I want to be correct with this when I do it, but the distance for this padding matters quite a lot for the final visual effect of it. So it has to be as close as it can possibly get. I think we can do that. I think we can glue that in place. Like that. I think we're going to go ahead. The die is cast, so to speak. I think we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, one thing I want to do before I glue this together, I remember that the interior is perforated. I just remember this now. You can see a little bit through that. I'm going to take a magic marker and I'm just going to black out just the center in there so that if you're peeking through there, if the light hits it at the right time, we're not going to have a visual light brown. It's better if it's just dark back there. So in the center, I'm going to take this, not being too pretty about it, just kind of getting in there and blacking this section out. Doesn't need to be too perfect. Again, you're going to see very little of it, but just enough to distract the eye. What we're looking for. That should be enough. I think I've lost the chat again. There we go. Now when I look through that, that should just be nice and dark. Okay. We're going to glue this on a curve as usual, but again, I'm going to do it in stages here. I'm just going to do this edge first, get it flat and secure, then I can work around that bend. And the big thing that you really want to make note of when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you get the glue right up in that edge there, because you want to be gluing that. Okay, it's still, okay, good. Now I'm paranoid. Just going to get a little bit of glue onto the salpa, but most of it really we want to get in that edge there. When we go in with our bone folder and work that edge down to make that step, we want to make sure that that's bonded really, really good. And the thread will be the final thing that holds it in place. I got all distracted and I forgot to put my wax paper down. Making a damn mess. There it is. Up, eyeballing that to make sure that's lined up properly. Now, normally we would press from the inside. In this case, we actually need to press from the outside in. Take the glass slicker. You're going to see a lot of glue come out of the edge here. I've done my job right. But you'll also start to see the reason for all of this effort here. It'll be even more so when I hit it with the bone folder, but you can see it starting to come out as the glass slicker works around. You can see when the light catches that there, see that step? That's why we're doing all of that effort on the inside. That's why that salpa is cut shorter than the outside edge there. And you can imagine that, well, as you've seen, it's kind of a pain to get that lined up properly. And it's something that I want to do more of. I think it looks great, but I haven't quite figured out the good way of doing it. I know the not good way of doing it, which is what we're doing today, but as with many things, you have to do it the bad way enough to where you figure out the good way. So we're getting there. That actually looks, I was skeptical of how well that was going to look. Just for the cursory glue down, that actually looks pretty good. I'm not unhappy with that. Now we still have a long way to go. We still have to work around, the curve and onto the other side there. But that's got a little bit of glue there I got to work off. Fortunately, it being water-based, it just wipes right off. You know what? I wanna see what it looks like. I'm gonna go in a little prematurely, I would say, but I'm gonna go in with the bone folder and try to work it down a little bit. You really won't see the true appearance of this line until it's got thread in it. But that's starting to get somewhere. Go. Smooth out some of our bone folder lines there. Both tools are very important. The bone folder gets up into that crease, and the glass slicker takes out any marks left over by the bone force. There we can really, just that little bit of extra definition, you can really see what that did there. Now, like I said, the difficult part is going to be getting this edge clean here and getting our stitches to be exactly right there. So that's going to be a little tough. We'll see how it works out. And then, like I said, of course, we still have to. Now we've got one end of it down. We've got to work the other end down. I think that's actually going to be okay. I think we're going to be all right. We may have to futz with it a little bit yet, but I think we're getting there. There's a lot more screwing around to be done yet. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're at least firmly on the right path now. I think what I'm going to do here, it's been about an hour in, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to refill my water, hit the head. Let's go ahead and take 5 and come back at it and see if we can't get this glued down and actually have something to show for all this pain we're going through now. So I'll see you guys in about 5 minutes. We'll come back and we'll attack the other side of it. Okay, now where we left off, again, for anybody who's potentially just joining or whatever, here we're working on joining the interior to the exterior, but the big thing we're fighting is the spacing and alignment of this padding on the inside. It looks quite nice, but it's not easy to get it where it needs to be. So we're kind of fighting that, and mostly I'm struggling through learning how to do this effectively. There's a better way than how I'm doing it here. This is not the good way of doing this, but it is at the moment the only way I really know how. Now with these together, I can kind of put these together and see, okay, I've got way too much over here. I need to deal with that. I think I'm going to try to lift more of that off. This, mark that a little bit. I know I need to take about that much off there. I should be able to do that. That shouldn't be too difficult. I should be able to work the scissors in there. Yeah, there. Taking it easy and lifting it up a little bit at a time. I don't want to pierce that green. Remember, right on the edge there, right where the other side of the leather where my scissors are, is where the stitch needs to go through. So I cut a nice big hole there. There's nothing for the stitch to bond. That's bad. That's a ruined project. So we're just taking it easy. Like I said, no shortage of risk in this one today. In either thing I could have done was risky. I'm at least doing this one something that is for me and not for a customer. Trying not to poke myself with the scissors there. If I get it kind of flat against it, I can get in there and cut away some of the glue holding it and lift it. Almost there. I was able to get that trimmed back a little bit more, and now we have Oil Boss, Rushton, my two good friends joining at the same time. You got it up on the big TV. Oh, that's okay. You know, dogs barking, not mine, is not dissimilar to what I'm dealing with right now. There's somebody on my street, either my next door neighbor or my across the street neighbor, is playing their damn boombox again. So I don't know. It's pounding in my ears. I can't think. It's a joke. I'm joking. But it's good to see the two of you. I've been having trouble with the chat catching up here, so there may be some extreme delay in chat. Hopefully not. Let me know when you hear me say this. Just to make sure that the thing is still working. Okay. Got that. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. I think I need to trim that a little bit. So I'm going to take this. Okay. Okay, good. All right, good to hear it's still working. Sorry to keep asking that, but again, just want to make sure that what I'm saying is getting through here. Thank you for your compliance, citizen. So again, I'll go through what we're doing here. This is a bit of an awkward stream today, and that I'm learning to do something that I haven't really done much of. So you'll notice I've been working on, if you came in, I've been trimming back this padded section in here, and I'm trying to do that all around this wall. So you see where I've got that raised highlight there. This is the effect that we want to get, but I'm not good at doing this yet, so I'm still figuring that out. There's a lot of awkward trimming and sizing needed to be done. If I'm smart, I'll measure this and burn it into my template so that I know that, okay, I cut it exactly this long and it pretty much fits. I've been eyeballing this, and this is what happens when you eyeball stuff. You can make it work, but it's just not particularly exciting or pretty. But we're pretty close now. I think that's good enough. I think the curve of that is good. I think these line up pretty good. Let's do a quick fold test and see what that looks like. I think that's going to work. Okay. Room to trim that. I think that's... I want to bring it in a little bit more in here. A little bit more up on this corner here. And I'm going to call it at that. I think any more than that, I'm just trying too hard. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the right... See, all I had to do, Oil Boss, was take the level and right-click, turn on bevel and emboss, and I would have been done. I was such a fool to try to do this the hard way, you know? Silly me. But we're getting it. So I have to glue the bend next, which I'm going to do just by itself. I'm just going to glue that bend, and then I'll leave this kind of back section flapping a little bit. So let me get jig. Workbench is an absolute mess today. Absolutely a mess. So don't mind that. Try to ignore the horrendous mess that is my workbench today. Again, we only want to get glue up a little bit on here, so we don't want to go too far in there. We don't want it to get into our perforated area, but we really want to make sure we get it in that step there. So when we work it in with the bone folder, that it's going to bond in the corner of that side here. Again, we're just going to do the center right now. Get the center by itself, then we'll come back and we'll do that far edge there. Okay. Let's see how this goes. Just kind of fighting the tension on this, holding it in place by hand, pressing it down, working it down as much as we can, kind of holding it in place. Take the glass slicker and work it over that corner. I don't want to press too hard on this, because when I'm going over this edge here, you can burnish the green and leave a dark spot there. So we don't want to do that. We want to be careful with how hard we press in that section there. Basically just want to press enough to make sure that we have got the glue worked in. I'm going to take the bone folder. Press around that. And that's actually looking great. That's looking really good. Now I am left-handed, so that's why I keep rotating this and hitting it with the other hand. It's just easier for me to use my dominant hand than try to switch hands. So I'm just kind of flipping it back and forth to hit this with my dominant hand, work that into that fold there. It actually feels like it's worked pretty well. Now with that, I'm just going to keep going over with my thumb, keep working it down, and all the while keeping pressure on it to help it hold around that bend. I really only need to do this for about a minute, 2 minutes, because that Sewa glue, especially with so much of it, it bonds pretty quickly and pretty strongly. And I actually think we've got probably as good of a bond as we need here. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. There's trouble at my feet. Big trouble in Little Youngstown. If I leave that there, it should stay down. It did. Deema. No. No. You have to be a good cat. You can't be coming out. Did I forget to shut the door? Did I go to the bathroom and forget to shut the door? Is that what I did? You can't do that. You can't be out here. You can't be doing it. You can't be doing it. You're supposed to be a good cat. You're supposed to be a good cat, not a bad cat. You gonna try to be a better cat? You don't look like you. That face does not look like you are. No. So I was able to hold the cat, and this stayed in place. So that means our glue has set. Everything looks good. We've got a nice, you can see the step there around that edge there. Very large cat. Very large cat, oil bots. Large cat, small man. Large Cat, Small Man is the name of my first studio album. Available on Spotify. Switched over from just water to mint tea. I have no modulation of my voice when I'm talking like this, so I just talk at like full volume, and it takes its toll on me. Now we're pretty much ready to glue this edge down. I think we're good. I think everything looks pretty good there. Not yet. Nope. I've still, believe it or not, I still have to come back further. Because I'm looking at it. Basically, I'm taking this and I'm looking at it. And I'm trying to look inside and see where the edge of that is. Where is the edge of this salpa here? And it's a little close. In fact, it's real close to the edge of the wall here. So I actually need to come in. Need to come in a lot. Need to come in much, much more than I had hoped. I need to come in almost full 1/16 of an inch. And I'm upset because that puts me closer to the edge of these stitches than I wanted to be for both aesthetic and structural purposes, but I need to come in about that much. I ate the last hobnob yesterday, Rushton. Thank you so much. Thank you so very, very much for the hobnobs. That was a delicious treat. Now, I gotta say, everybody I've told about the hobnobs, their immediate response was, "Is it the chocolate hobnob?" And I tell them, no, it's the Odie one. Now, I had no complaints about the Odie one. That was delicious, but everybody tells me that the chocolate hobnob is the best. And my question is this. I have not ascertained, is it chocolate flavored or is it covered in chocolate? Which one is it? That's a very important distinction to make. Maybe you can help me. While Rushton answers that question, I'm going in. I have to still take more off this edge here. Which is, it's frightening. Again, like I said, if I go through here, it's not good. Be very, very careful to just be snipping at the glue, not going through the exterior backing, which would be very, very bad. But so far, so good. It's slow going, but I'm getting there. We're getting there. We're working through it. I feel like a bumbling, fumbling fool here. Same with a layer of milk chocolate on one side. Why on just one side? Yeah, that just seems cheap to me. If you're going to put chocolate on one side, why wouldn't you just dip the whole damn thing in it? You know, I'm starting to think that there may be a lot of trumped up support for these chocolate hobnobs. I think the Odie ones are the best ones. Oh yeah, is it illegal to have jelly babies? I have to say the jelly babies have I initially was very fond of them. They've lost their luster for me, so to speak. There's just something with that texture that is just, even for somebody who likes gummies like me, it is a little hard. Black. I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't. There's just something about the texture of that I have trouble getting used to. I'm very textural. Flavor's good, but just something about the straight jelly insides just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. But still, I greatly appreciate you sending those. Good bit of glue here to still working out. Of course, it's very annoying to have to. There's not a lot of room to work with it in here with this glue down so far up, but that's the way it goes. Now, all the people who have done this padded effect regularly and know what they're doing, I'm sure they're laughing at me. But I'll get there eventually. I will figure it out. That said, I think in the future I would probably opt not to do this wallet of this type because there's a lot to lose if I screw it up. So we're almost trimmed up. Working the scissors into there as much as I can. Taking it slow, being very careful. Boy, oh boy. I really had this one all screwed up. I had the measurement just completely wrong on this one. Golly. All sorts of screwy. I'm going to check it, and hopefully this is close enough to where I can say, yes, that's going to work. Squashies. That's not a real name. That's not. No person in their right mind would name their candy Squashies. You got to be kidding me. Here. How's that looking? This is almost it. I'm gonna just cry. I think I'm gonna do one more. Now wait a minute. Let me look again. Let me look again here. I need to come more in here. I need to come down here a little bit more. This side is good. This side needs more trimming. I think this final cut should do it. Final Cut is my favorite Pink Floyd album, by the way. One that everybody seems to dislike, but it's my favorite. Minions squashies. Dear Lord. Dear man. What in God's name makes you think I would want Minions squashies? Okay, let's take a look at this again. I think that will work. I think that will be enough. I think that will do it. Closer look here. Okay. Teeny tiny, it's a little bit more over here. This top side is just a little bit high still. But after this cut, this is the last cut. I know now if I try and do any more to it, I just run the risk of really, really screwing it up. Let's scrape a little bit of that out. Like I said, not a pretty process here today. But I think if we do it right, I think the outcome is gonna be worth it. This wallet is for fun. So I was saying at the start, Russian, I had the option of doing two equally risky things on stream today. One for customer and one for fun. I opted to do the one for fun because if I screw it up, well, I haven't lost anything. Great note. The other one is a full alligator card wallet that would need to be split and all that stuff. So I said, well, I'm fine recording that on camera and editing it to make it look pretty, but there's so much that's not pretty that happens with that. I'm not going to do that on stream. I'm going to do this instead. I'm kind of regretting. I actually think I probably would have been safer doing the alligator wallet than this one, but we're getting it. We're getting through it here. I think we're going to go ahead. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to glue this down now. I think this is it. I think if I try to do any more to it, I'm just going to make my life miserable. It certainly doesn't make for good television. Yeah, it's very fun. I'll give you a... As soon as I glue it down here, God willing, I'll give you a better look of the outside there in just a moment. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to pull the trigger on this one. It's all done here. Get this glued down, and then we'll get a look at it. And then we can actually work in that step, work it down, glue it down, and make it look pretty. And that'll be our payoff, is actually getting to see what this looks like put together. Thank you for, if you've been watching through this and watching me fuddle and muddle through this, thank you for sticking around. I know that wasn't the most thrilling thing, but I think the appearance of this will be worth the trouble. I think. Like I said, there's no guarantee that this is going to be it. Find out. Had to fudge it a little bit here. I don't quite like the way that's laying down there, but it's just going to have to be. That look. Looks like. Edge on it. Edge. Not far enough. It is. Okay, I think we're good. I think we're gold, actually. Oh, one way or another, we're going to have to be, because it's it. Move that back. Sorry, I moved that away from the camera there. Forgive me. I can tell off the bat I don't like how close these stitches are to the edge, but given the circumstances, I think that's as good as we can hope for. Somebody who was much more experienced at this than me would be able to do a better job of it, but today is a learning day for me. We've got that done. We can kind of trying not to ruin our fold there, but working it down as flat as we can. Actually, we got it. Now this edge needs to be trimmed a little bit yet, but we did finally get all that pressed down. Like I said, these stitches here ended up being too close to this. I don't like how close they are over there, but it'll do. I'll accept that. Oil Boss, I told you I don't do that slap thing. I don't do that. Trim this. And once this is trimmed, we'll really know how close we got it. And actually, Perfect. That's the exact distance I want it to be. I'm actually pretty happy with that. Take this now. That of course made a hell of a mess there with all that glue going all different directions and everything, and you can see the workbench is an unholy mess, so I'm going to take a hot second here to clean this up. I'm not going to do the slab. I'll tell you what. Oil boss, put your money where your mouth is. Hit that super thanks right now, and I'll do the slab. How's that sound? Make it PayPal official, buddy. I'm not a trained monkey, sir. That got a little bit messy, so before I do too much else, I'm going to take a moment to polish this exterior. It'll get polished again when it's done, but it's good to do this periodically if you're finding that you're I'm not sending minion squashies if there's no slap. How's that? Got enough slap for you, buddy? You people and your slap. Cleaned up the outside. I'll do the inside too. Bit of a messy process that was, so don't need to be too particular with it. Just want to clean off anything that may be sticking to the surface there. Any little bits of excess glue, that'll usually come off with a good quick polish, and in this case it did. Gonna look our edge here. Pretty good. A little bit of trimming to be done here on this side. It's a lot of fudgery to get this far. Boy, oh boy. But we're almost there. I'm gonna go in again with my bone folder and press this down some more. Really get a good look at it. Because now with me going to punch my stitches, I want to have a very clear idea of where that line is, where my chisels need to exit. And make sure that I'm getting it lined up just right. This will also give us a very clear vision of what all that was for. Why did we go through all that trouble? Kind of going around a couple times, working it in. Not trying to do too much pressure at once. We don't want to leave any irrevocable marks. Actually, came out pretty good. Certainly room for improvement in the future, but being a rank amateur such as myself, pretty okay. Here's, you can really, with the bone folder going over it, you can really see it now. A nice crisp edge down there. You see the light catching it. And the idea is that when we punch the stitching holes, the stitches line right there and pull that down tight. Here's the look of this wallet so far. That's pretty damn cool. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. I like that. I'm happy with that. Look at that. Got that nice curve there. That looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Now, generally, when I'm punching stitching holes, I'm doing it from the inside out, because I like to be very aware of where my chisels exit in relation to these pieces here. These are the top edges of the card slots. I'm debating currently in my mind whether I want to punch from the outside to ensure that I get right up against this line here. But I think I'm going to not do that. I think I'm not going to. I think I'm going to punch from the inside out like I usually do. I think I'm going to stick with what I know. Stick with what I know I can do, what I know works. Not try to change too much in one project. I've certainly changed enough in one go on this one. I don't think I'm going to muddy the waters any further than I already have. But to give myself the best chance, I'm going to take my wing dividers and double check that my line that I'm going to scribe is roughly the same distance as that step is. And it pretty much is all around. No, not NASCAR colors, Oil Boss. These are Grand Prix colors, sir. Oh, these colors are older than me, sir. Yes, I know that's what you I know that's what you'd be imitating me as right now. You don't fool me. Now, before I go scribing the lines, I'm going to take my plane, clean up the edges as much as I can. Good. That's good enough. Nobody said that NASCAR is not real racing. It's not my favorite. So it's kind of funny to note that almost none of my measurements were right on this. I don't think a single one was anywhere close to where it actually really needed to be. I had to basically hand fit that from start to finish. There's got to be a better way of doing that. I just don't know what it is yet. I need to trim the corners, and I can see that I'm looking at it, I can see which one is smaller radius than the other. This one up here, so this is the small one. Where is it? That might be the big one. No, that's got to be the small one. Yeah, that's the small one. Okay. Small radius. I'm going to tell myself that that's the small radius. The big, okay, yeah, I did have it right. That was the small radius. This is the big radius. Okay. There's the final real shape of that. There's the final actual shape of it there. Really, really pleased with the shape of it. Clean up some of this mess here. Oh my god, you and your Velcro. You are a scourge upon this earth, my friend. My father-in-law has a Velcro wallet that he just will not part with. And my mother-in-law is always like, our son is a leather worker. We should be carrying his best work. I like my Velcro though. Similarly, I tried to make my dad a belt because I thought that would be something he'd want. And he's like, I got this ratchet belt. I like it. I think I'm good. Some people just like what they like, and that's okay. All right, so we're going to take the wing dividers, and again, we're going to double check and make sure that these are the same distance as our step, which they are close enough. Mark out some lines there. We're going to punch from the inside out, which is probably not the best way of doing this, but it's how I'm going to do it today. We're going to do it this way. We're going to see what happens. All right. Yep, that's good. Now, the tricky thing about doing this is when you hold with the step here, the wallet is actually not flat anymore. It's on a very slight angle, so you have to take a look at that and be very clear about the angle you're holding it in relation to the angle of the wallet. Because if you hold it 90 degrees from the tabletop, you will not be coming out perpendicular on the end. You actually have to hold it at a very slight angle. And actually, perfect. So now when we punch through, obviously it's punching a little bit out some of our crease that we have there, but when we stitch it down, we'll go back over it with the bone folder. That'll all come back, but the positioning is correct. You can see that it's right along that line there. That's where we need to be. Now I need to do that around the entire perimeter of the wallet, so let's see how good I managed to keep that going there. Let's find out. So far, so good. That one's good. So we'll do the other card slots here. Yep. That one's good. One's good. Okay. This side here. Now I know that the distance on this, despite my best efforts, unsurprisingly, is not exactly the same from the edge around all sides here. So basically, as I'm looking at this, I'm taking a look at it and saying, okay, this one's a little wider here. I need to angle the irons a little bit more to get a more sharper angle here, a difference on the inside versus the outside to keep it as close to this edge as I can. So I'm adjusting the exit point as I go. Just kind of compensating for the distance and difference, or the difference in distance. Right. Right on the money. So far, so good. That's good. Okay. It's good. Now, at this point, it's tempting to think, wow, this may just turn out perfectly the way we want it to. Don't think that yet. Always be on your guard. Something can always go wrong at the very last second, so you want to be accounting for that. Be ready for the idea that something could go wrong at any moment, because it can. You have to be thinking about that. Okay, side all done. We're looking smart. It's good. Okay, so there's our lines there, all pretty much right up on top that edge there. In fact, we can check it with the bone folder there, get in close and see. So yeah, right up here, we're right on it. So when we tension that down with the stitch, it's going to do what that bone folder just did. It's going to pull it up tight against that step there and really bring it into relief. Now we got to do curves, which, oh boy, the curves are going to be fun. Let's see. Good. Slow. One's good. That one's good. Okay. Two. People often ask me, how do I punch these curves? I basically just do it in as long of a run as I can. So you can see there's just two straight lines there, and I'll try to join them with a straight line in the middle. That kind of evens out the sharpness of the angle there. That usually works quite well. That one is actually a little too much to do that way. I'm just going to do just a single punch right in the middle. Okay, that side's all done. Do the other side. And oh man, I will be glad to be done with this step. Okay, almost done. Finish line in sight, guys. See, I dislike how close I am to that stitch there. I would have liked that to be a bigger gap there, but it is what it is. They're not actually touching, they're just closer than I'd have liked. That could be worse. Considering what we did, I'm going to say that's good enough. Like I said at the start, I wasn't going to end up perfectly satisfied with this. I knew that going in. But so far, I'm pretty satisfied, actually. Did it. That was going to be the worst part right there. Not all the trimming and all the fitting, but that. Because if anything was going to go truly, horrendously, disastrously wrong, probably going to be there. Let's... Okay. So we lose some of our crispness from hammering that down, and obviously, you know, all the punching and everything, but it's going to come right back after we stitch it. So we now get to stitch it. Here's the outside. And we managed to do this with the marquetry attached to a piece of salpa that floats independently from the inside. So this is stitched through the back. No stitches are visible on the inside there. We've got our nice... That, I have to say, I'm pretty happy so far. I haven't even stitched it yet. I'm pretty damn happy. This was a tough one to do. I wasn't sure how this was going to work. It's so far. Let's get some thread on it. Spool here. I don't know if this spool is going to be enough or not. I think it might just barely be enough. Find out. We need to do 4 times the length of the perimeter. 1. Right. 2. 3. 4. Just about expended that spool. That spool's done. We'll hold on to that little bit of thread there and use it for stitching card slots or something like that. That one is expended. Okay. Oh boy, I'm excited. I'm excited to see how this looks when we begin stitching it. Here are needles here. Again, I have to ask, for those of you still sticking around, number 1, thank you. Hope this is entertaining, at least in some respect. But if you're still here, do me a favor, hit the like button. It helps these videos get seen. It's always much appreciated. Right. Second to get the camera set up here. Now, hold on, we're not going to leave it like that. That'll do. Start. This ended up being much, much thinner than I thought it was going to be. It's actually going to be kind of tricky to stitch. What's for dinner tonight? Well, we had a frozen pizza yesterday. Half of it left, so I figure probably that. Waste not, want not. And I've immediately put a knot in my... Literally instantly. But you know what? If that's all that goes wrong today, that's... This sucker ended up being very thin. Actually thinner than I want. But it is what it is. Okay. or stitch. Get a couple stitches in here and then work it down and let you see how it looks. You really don't get the true full effect of that step until the stitch is in place. Then having the crease on the outside perimeter really finishes the look, you know. How thin this is, I'm probably going to end up with way more thread than I actually need. But better to have too much than not enough. Just awkward to fight this kind of length here at the start. I'm going to get up and around the corner. I'll show you guys what we got. Forgive me for the more subdued, yes, thinking, thoughtful nature of the stream today. That I was working on something that is not familiar to me. I had to do a lot of figuring things out. I tried to talk it through as much as I could for your benefit. I realized I was fairly quiet for much of it, so forgive me. Haven't got a whole lot of that in me today. Just kind of woke up foggy today. Just one of those days. No amount of coffee could really get me out of the brain fog I was in, so forgive me. But again, for those of you who did tune in and watch, I always appreciate that extremely. It is nice to have the company. And to Mr. Bob, once again, thank you so much for your kind correspondence over the past few weeks. It has been fun. I hope we keep doing that. I'm glad you got your wallet today. Well, thank you, Russian. I appreciate the reassurance, my friend. I've been thinking about that shell you sent me. I have a couple ideas for it. Don't know yet. Oh well, look, it's my brother Rob. This guy. This guy finally decides to tune in. Got a blue name and everything, and never shows up. I'm gonna go a little further around this corner here, and I'll take it off the pony, hit it with the bone folder, and let you see what it looks like. Looking good so far. It's interesting, Russian. It's very interesting. Reminds me a lot of Epi, the one. Very interesting texture on that. It's the kind of thing that I don't immediately know what the right use is for it, but I know that once I do find, and very important to note, the right use for it, it's going to be amazing. Epi is one of those interesting patterns. I did one with a full black glazed alligator wallet with a red Epi liner. I was really pleased with how it looked. Epi has been something that I've talked ill of. It's just not a pattern that I find very appealing, but the customer really wanted it for this one. I figured, well, if we're going to find a use for it, it's going to be this one. And it ended up being amazing. It was the right use for it. Yeah, creasing Epi was not particularly fun, but the way I did it, I didn't have to crease that much of it. So it was actually much harder to glue than it was to crease. Because you get so many high and so many deep low spots, it's hard to get the glue to stay anywhere. Speaking of glue, I need to work a little bit in here. Yeah, I'd be curious to see that. I've only done the one wallet with it, and I'm not super keen to use it again, but, like I said, it has its place. It's just hard to find what that place is. I see a lot of bad uses of epi. And I think that's where it gets such a bad rap, and that people use it incorrectly, and people use it in ways that it is not suited for. And in those cases, it admittedly it looks quite ugly. So again, I think finding the right use of it is important. Go a little bit further here. I'm going to go about to the middle. Go about up to here, and then stop. I want to get a good actual view of how this is going to look. Early parts of stitching where the thread is super long are always quite awkward. Every stitch brings a little less thread with it. I had a minor disaster here in the shop yesterday. Almost. I was down here working. I had to do a foil stamp for a customer's order. I turned the creasing machine on, or not the creasing machine, the quick print, the foil stamping machine on. And right as I did that, my wife came and got me with lunch. So we went up and watched television for lunch. And when I came downstairs, I couldn't figure out why I kept smelling a soldering iron. It smelled like a soldering iron had been left on for an hour or two. I realized to my horror I had left the quick print on the whole time I was eating lunch. It had climbed up to like 350 degrees, and all the oil had begun to smoke a little bit. I was like, oh god. I just turned the whole thing off, let it cool down completely, and I redid it today. And it turned out very nice. If you look at my reel today, you can see stamp. I have a feeling I'm going to take that lead type out, and it's going to be completely stuck together. I know, I wasn't proud of myself. I was very upset with myself, but it was okay and that nothing bad happened. But something bad certainly could have happened. I'm normally pretty paranoid about that kind of thing, and I was surprised that I had such a lapse of thought that that could happen. Sometimes you need a good scare, I guess. Alright, I think this is a good stopping point to take this out and see how it looks. Let's take a look. Take the bone folder and go right up to the edge of the thread. Work it down. Quite aggressively this time. Now the thread kind of takes the brunt of that pressure. And we still have to hammer that down a little bit, but if you look at that edge there, I know my camera's inverted a little bit there, but you can see the, right at the edge of the thread at the bottom there, you can see that nice crisp highlight we get there from that raised part there. And it's actually, in person, it's rather subtle, but when that highlight hits it, it's definitely there. So that, all that trouble we did just for that. Now, it needs the crease to fully set it off there, but pretty good so far. Bob, that's very true. I should put a timer on, because generally once I get it heated up, I only need it for a very short period of time, so putting a putting a timer or an alarm on it would be very wise. But at the moment, I have an excess of youth and a deficit of wisdom, so it'll take me a minute to get there. Let's keep going. Rotate a little bit here so you can kind of see better. Really do need to get working on getting another camera for this setup here. Something a little higher def for the top-down camera. Something closer to like Skyver camera that I got. And I really wanted to use the Skyver camera for this application, but it just won't focus at this range. Just too close. I need to get something with an actual manual focus there. Thank you, Matt. Thank you. This is an interesting one. I don't know if I'll sell it or keep it. I'll probably sell it. For what, I don't know. Difficult to price these kinds because on one hand it's definitely an art piece, and on the other hand it's also a prototype, and that I know it can be done better. I will do it better. It's difficult to work past that, at least in my brain. I definitely liked the marquetry though. I liked doing that. I love the effect. It looks amazing. And there's a lot of room to do more of this. You know, you can pick out any Grand Prix racer's color scheme and do it. Hopefully the single-digit numbers are better. Yeah, I want to do one. I've wanted to do the Lola GT40 colors. That pale blue. God, that would look good. But finding leather of that color is a little tricky. So that's going to be the thing, is finding the right color for it. God, that would be gorgeous. I'd do that one for you. It'll have to be yours, Mr. Ford man. All right, Oil Boss. If you could have any NASCAR racer on a wallet, who would it be? Who would it be, and why did you choose Bobby Labonte? You strike me as a Bobby Labonte man. You know, kind of an underdog. Nobody expects him. You know, nobody's going to expect him compared to, you know, Jeff Gordon or Richard Petty or something like that. But he's out there. I don't know. I know who you're. You're a Tony Stewart man. My neighbor's walking. Kurt Busch. That's a good choice. I could accept Kurt Busch. He's Joey Logano's a killer. That's my dad's favorite guy. Once oh, what's his name? Jeff Gordon. Once he retired, Joey Logano became his man. Danica Patrick, good choice. GoDaddy.com. Danica Patrick. Fireball. I see we got some good choices in here. The Oil Boss. That's why you're a stream moderator. This is you're just a good old fashioned troll right there. This guy, this fella. But I did this. These are Jim Clark's colors, and Jim Clark was a 50s and 60s Grand Prix racer. A hell of a good driver, arguably the best of his day. He was killed tragically at Spa. And he was noted for being a very careful driver. He was the best. He was very careful. Safety was very important, and he did not want to die. He had seen too many of his friends get killed. It definitely, in his first big Grand Prix race, he saw one of his friends get killed, and it left an impression on him. He took it upon himself to be, he did not take risks. He did not take risks, and he still won, which is the sign of an incredible mind behind the wheel. There are not a lot of people who do that. They're you always think of the greatest race car drivers as the people who take risks and they pay off. But he did not do that. He was just a good, consistent driver. That is far rarer, I find. But it was a shock. It shook up the entire industry when he died. Because everybody looked at Jim Clark and said, well, if it can happen to him, how could any of us be safe? Because he was so careful and so good. They started to be they took safety a little more seriously after his death, but a lot more people were still going to die, or they really got to a point where it wasn't going to happen that much anymore. Yeah, I do remember hearing that. Yeah, he I don't think he wanted to race that day, and I think the general consensus is that a tire deflated and sent him off the track because nobody wanted to believe that he could make an error. That's his legacy. Is that the car must have malfunctioned because he was so good, he could not possibly have screwed up. Playing the driving sims gives you a real appreciation for what those guys do. And it's how easy it is to, especially doing rally driving, which I find very fun. But especially doing that, how easy it is to just go off the track and off the edge of a cliff. My word, how do they get that good? Hey John, have a good day. Hope you feel better, buddy. Hang in there. I forgot to ask how you were doing. Forgive me. Yeah, Oil Boss, unfortunately, my racing vocabulary is pretty limited. I definitely am very a casual observer of it. At this point, we are halfway through stitching the wallet. Moving along quite well. My brother likes talking about the Group B rally cars of the 1980s, the twin-charged hatchbacks, cars that no man could actually drive, and how they were so absurdly powerful and dangerous for the day that they stopped the entire sport. They just did away with Group B. It was too dangerous for any man to be able to control on a course. Because the drivers having that much power, well, they were damn well going to use it. It reminds me. This is a tangent, racing related, but it reminds me of one of the last cars I painted was a Fox body Mustang for a friend of a friend, and he was doing it up for his wife, and the car was slow. The car was known to be slow. They had it on the drag strip, and it was known to do 14-second quarter miles, which is nothing nothing really good. Certainly a Fox body you know could do better than that. But despite this, despite the known slowness, it had very loud exhaust, of course. It had a very extremely aggressive front body kit bumper. Uh, Very aggressive carbon fiber rear wing. And hilariously, sticking out the back bumper was the drag parachute, which was there just for show. It was never intended to be used. It was there simply for show. And I found it very funny that he made for his wife, effectively, a Mustang cosplaying as a drag racing Mustang. And it wasn't, they never raced it. It was never intended to be raced. They just wanted it to look like it raced. And I just find that tremendously amusing. To each, far be it from me to say, oh, that's how silly that is. They loved it. They loved that car, and she loved driving it. It just the idea of it just makes me laugh. Raikkonen is driving NASCAR, isn't he? I thought he was going to race at Watkins Glen. Did that happen? Or am I remembering incorrectly? I do find it terribly amusing as well how many how the Finns seem to be preternaturally good drivers. Having known quite a few Finns in my time, they're Finnish people are something else. Some of my very best friends are from Finland, and they are a different breed. That's all I can say. If you know any Finns, you know what I'm talking about. I guess their driver's education is so detailed, and their driving conditions are very difficult there half the year anyway, so they have to be good drivers to begin with. I just find it humorous. The Finn persona, so to speak, is definitely something. That's what I thought, Oil Boss. Yeah, I was surprised to see him doing the F1 or the NASCAR move, but I guess I shouldn't be. Mario Andretti and how many other guys have done. Well, Jim Clark too. Jim Clark raced IndyCar and Grand Prix. I mean, even though I guess there's plenty of precedent for it. I'm curious to see how Raikkonen will do with a big, heavy NASCAR compared to what he's used to. Probably amazing. My dad loves NASCAR. He always tries to explain the drama of it to me, but I just can't find it. I just can't find the romance in it. Even just something about going around in a circle that doesn't do it for me. Even the road courses, I just don't get into it. I don't know. It just hasn't been my thing. And F1 is good. I enjoy watching that. I think I gotta. I think rally racing. I think rally racing is the closest to real racing, in my opinion. Those guys are just nuts. On to side 3 out of 4 now. Almost there. That's looking good. Now that I see this with the perimeter stitch, I'm really glad I stitched all the marquetry down. Really happy I did that. Because it just looks so damn good together. And despite all my futzing around with glue and everything earlier, I have a very strong bond on all my edges here. The only place I've had any lifting at all was just in the very teeny tips of the card slots where the pricking irons kind of punched and loosened them a bit. But everything else, every other edge on this wallet has been perfectly bonded. which is that's auspicious. That's a good sign. I really expected to have more serious difficulty with this today. Really thought there was actually going to be some major problem solving, and I guess there was. I guess with doing the figuring out the spacing of that padding, that was certainly a challenge to work through. I spent what, half an hour, 45 minutes on just sitting here with scissors, and you guys watched. God bless you. Thank you. I think I will do more of these. I think what I will do, I'll probably drop padded effect. Probably just go to just a straight flat edge and edge paint it. Probably be what I do. But you gotta do it sometimes to figure out how you want to do it. I've been about every year I have a crisis of confidence when it comes to design. I'm going through one now. I love my designs. They're very good. They are my own. I feel very good about them. But when you make something the same thing for such a long time, you start to you definitely you lose something. So you have to do something different every now and then. And this was my something different. I had a good conversation with another artist locally, and I was looking at entering into there's the Ohio Arts Council. Every year they do an individual excellence award, and they give out a grant for it. And I thought, well, I don't realistically hold out much hope of doing much for this, but I'm gonna submit anyway. And I asked her because she has won it twice. She's a very very skilled artist. So I asked her what she thought about it. I sent her some of my pictures of my stuff. She said, "Well, you do very nice work." And in fact, her husband owns one of my wallets too, so she's kind of seen the change I've done. He bought one of my very first, some of the first wallets I ever made specifically for sale. He ended up buying one, and he loves it, which is always nice to see. So she's seen the transition of my work from early work to this. She's impressed and says, "You do lovely work." And she said something that stuck with me, and I thought was very important that I think I needed to hear. And that when it comes to something like this, craftsmanship only gets you so far. Obviously, I feel very good about my craftsmanship. I think I'm extremely good. That's one of the few things I'll say in my favor. I think I'm a pretty damn good craftsman when it comes to this. But in the grander scheme of things, you need more than just craftsmanship. And I have not, unfortunately, had much time in the past few years to really spend a lot of time focusing on the artistic side of this. I've pretty much been limited to making either only things for sale, or I can only work on orders. Basically, all of 2020 and 2021, I had no time to make anything just for fun. I just didn't get to do it because I was working full time at the shop. Now that I am working full time here, I have to discipline myself out of that mentality. I have to make some things purely for the art of it. And yes, even though this is still a wallet, the real challenge of this, the real point of this was to do the marquetry on the back, to see if I could do it. And it seems that I can. Now knowing that I can do it, can I translate that into something that can then be sold? Can I make this piece of art into a piece of art that is also a marketable product? Something that somebody will look at and say, wow, I absolutely need to have that. That's what I want. That's what I need to do. I need to think more along those lines and less along the lines of make the same product all the time. Despite it being good, I need to make something different. Truly, truly different. And I like to think that this was kind of baby steps into doing that. I want to explore this idea some more. I want to be more. I want to focus more on the artistic side of things. I want to be able to say I am an artist as well as an artisan. That's not to say that what I've made in the past is not art. I think it is, but I must keep improving. I must keep changing. I have to keep a little bit of that fear, or as my dear friend Matt would say, I have to stay hungry. I'm carrying a variant of this wallet, obviously without the marquetry on the back, just a simple billfold. I like the perforation. I think that's a good thing. I want to do more of that. Yes, I had to thank her for that, Hilo. I thought that was something I needed to hear. You know, it's one thing to hear, "Wow, you make a very good product." You hear too much of that, you can think that that's all you need to do, but you always have to do more. I was overdue for being reminded of that. And it's hard to break yourself from the habit of working on orders, working on product. Is really what I intended to do today and yesterday, in fact. I had intended to work on the order for the gentleman who's still waiting very patiently for it, but I got this inspiration. And I had to do it because it is so fleeting. It goes away so quickly. If you don't grasp it then and there, it will be gone for who knows how long. So I had to make myself put that on hold and do this instead, just to see this through to the end. See if this is something that might be the direction for me. And so far, I'm rather optimistic. I'm liking this. The process of doing this was fun. The outcome is certainly different. I don't know anything else that's been done along these lines, so I'm rather excited about this. I think this may be something I can do more of. Almost done. Rounding the last corner now. Rounding the last corner, then we get to hammer our stitches home, crease it, and then do the final. Oops. What was that? Oops. I almost pulled my thread apart. Thread caught a teeny tiny little edge, almost ripped itself apart. Rethread that needle before that happens again. Rule one of the stream is definitely try not to say oops when you're working on someone's order. Yeah, it's quite tough, Matt. When it comes, you have to grasp it. And just thinking, anybody who's tried to do it, the sheer impossibility of sitting down and saying, "I'm going to come up with some ideas today." Oh, like hell you are. Like hell you're going to sit down and think of ideas. That just isn't how it works. How many nights I've sat. I have a big saved folder on Instagram of all the pieces and all the images and just random things that I find inspiring in some way. I'd like to do something with that. Even with actual direct you know uh, stimulus in front of me, it doesn't happen. It just happens when it happens. The the, the age old frustration of the artist. Almost done with it. So close. Yeah, there's a couple things that you can do that that's different for every person. I honestly find that playing video games is very helpful for clarifying the mind. For me, at least. Yeah, exactly, Hilo. When it comes, you have to take it. It's funny how all the different disciplines and forms of art, all the ages, that is the one constant that that binds them all together. The constant of seeking inspiration and frequently being unable to find it. I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to some lunch, but now I'm so happy with how this has turned out. I just want to see it through. I actually expected this to be a shorter stream today. Wasn't sure how much was going to happen. I got further than I thought I would, and the outcome was better than I thought it would. So that's a win. Get hammered down quickly. Give me just a moment to turn the camera back. Whew. Put my needles and thread away. Come on now. I have long seeked for a way to bring together the various parts of my life that have kind of driven me and inspired me. You know, my interest in naval architecture, ships, 1960s furniture, cars, things like that. It's been difficult to try to find a way to pull those threads together. I think this does at least one of them. I'm going to call that a win. Now with the stitching done, we get to hammer this in place, hammer these stitches down, because those holes are quite proud. We want to get that closed up a bit. Excess glue from the back stitch there, wipe that away. Okay. That looks a little smarter. Now there's still a little bit to do. Now with the thread giving good tension and compression to these layers, we have a lot easier time of sanding this now. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to flip my kind of used up the sandpaper on the bottom of this. I'm going to flip it up. At the other side, there's some fresh sandpaper on the bottom. So we're just going to go and try and true up these edges before we crease them. And in fact, while we're doing that, we're going to turn the creaser on and hopefully remember to turn it off when we're done. These edges are already pretty close, so I don't need to really go too aggressively at it. These ones here need some work. I'm going to go perpendicular to them with the block. Round out those corners a little bit. Hey, I do think this wallet will be sellable. I think this will turn out nice enough to where I can confidently put that on my website and say, you can buy this. Feel good about it. While we're waiting for the iron to heat up, let's go ahead and we'll take the bone folder and open up our glue seams there. This is something that if you make wallets and you don't do, you should do it. What you want to do is take the bone folder after you've stitched it, work it in, work that bone folder all the way up to the thread. And what that does is any excess glue that gets smushed in there that would be difficult to put a card into or to make use more difficult, it opens all that up. So your customer doesn't have to do that. That is a nice thing to do for people. So strongly recommend that. This was a real bear to put together, I must say. Okay. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. I do like the way that looks. I'm not 100% sold on dark brown interior. I think it works. I think I can make it work better. I have to figure that out. I'm thinking maybe curving this top. So that's a straight edge and a curved bottom here. I'm thinking maybe having them both curved. I don't know yet. I have to think about that. It is a brass bone folder. Rocky Mountain Leather sells them. I don't use it for any other reason than that brass is my favorite material. So I saw it and I was like, I need that. I'm going to get it. So that was session to myself. Any bone folder will work. Doesn't matter if it's brass or plastic or actual bone. Any bone folder will work. Let's do the thing. Let's crease it. And have any scrap here? Yep, that's good. Okay, we're not going to burn anything. Nothing ever truly looks finished until it's creased. The crease kind of... It's funny how if you have wonky stitches or things like that where there's a bit of a wave, you would think that adding a straight line next to it would accentuate that, but it does not. The crease actually goes a great length to making the wallet look complete and to hiding any slight deficiencies you might have in your stitch line. So if you're not creasing them, look into it. Strongly recommend it. Do it. It's the electric irons are cheaper than they've ever been, and they're more plentiful than they've ever been. If you're doing small goods and you want to do fine goods, this is one of the first things you should get. And you don't even need to get an electric one. You can do it just as well with the manual creasers with the alcohol burner and everything, but that's a pain and I don't recommend that. Get the electric one if you can. That changes the whole look of this thing. It really, really does. Forgive me, I kind of drifted back towards me there. I need to figure out a way to extend my camera arm a little closer to me because they're so used to leaning directly over it. I have to remind myself to keep inside the tape line so you guys can actually see what the hell I'm doing. There's the inside. That really dresses it up, especially in the brown. I like the brown much, much better now with that crease line in it. Now we have to do the outside, and on this we have to be very careful because yellow is one of those colors that if you linger too long, you will burn it. So you have to be very quick going around that edge there. Start in the green to try to bleed off any excess heat, and just ever so lightly just kiss it across the edge of that. Now, I'm not going to do any more than that. I'm going to try to avoid that from now on. I may have to go back over it to clean it up a little bit after I redo the inside, but I'm going to leave the yellow alone. Do the same thing on this side. That's it. No more than that. That's enough. Any more than that, asking for trouble. And when you crease something like that on something this thin, you're going to lose a little bit of the definition on the opposite side. So I'm going to very lightly go back over the interior just to clean that up a little bit. This is a Mason creaser. So I don't know if their tips are designated the same way as like some of the French brands, but this is an R2, so it's a 2mm round tip, and I use that because I'm left-handed, and all of the tips are made for right-handed people. This is the one tip that I can use ambidextrously, but I find that it works best for me because with so many round corners and things, this I find is the best way to work around that. So I use the round tip for everything. Very light pressure just going in just to redefine these lines. I'll do the same for the outside again. Obviously, the thicker the overall piece, the less of this you have to do. But this one ended up being very, very thin. Much thinner than I thought it was going to be, actually. It's not a bad thing. Cool. There we have our creasing done on the outside. You can just kind of catch it there. Now the fun part. Now we get to go back over and take the bone folder and really work in that line there, which we've lost quite a bit of it, both from the creasing, hammering, the stitching, all of that. We've lost a little bit of it. And we're going to go back in and add that definition back. I'm just getting right up. I'm running the bone folder right up to the edge of the stitch. I'm doing this on the inside edge of the stitch. I'm going to come back and do it from the outside edge again as well. Oh, that is my dear brother. As my dear brothers, Eric and Rob would say, that's money. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to do that one more time, get a little more pressure into that, a little more definition into that. Now, for those of you who stuck through all of that mess earlier, here's the final. This is it. This is the payoff. This is where we get to see it look like the thing. Wow, I need a Ricola or something. Whew. Didn't think I talked that much, but I guess I did. Oh, yeah. I'm just going to rotate it and let the light catch it, and use the light and the shadow to kind of see where the definition has been placed. I like that. That was worth it. That was worth the trouble. That was, I don't often say that, but that was worth the trouble. Now we're going to undo it. Why? Because I'm going to do it again on the inside. In retrospect, I realize I should have done this from the start, but should have done this first, but yeah. I'm going to put cards in the card slots here. Number one, because we'll get to see what it looks like, all done and in use. Number two, we're going to do what we just did, but on the inside edge. Now, there's no padding there, but the cards give us a little bit of padding. So it kind of helps that bone folder run up along the edge of the stitch. And it helps us kind of put in a small defining line there. It just looks nice. I've started doing this just as of a couple weeks ago. In fact, Mr. Bob, I think yours was one of the first ones I did it on. And I really like the way it looked, so I think that's something I'm going to do from now on for all my wallets. But we're going to be very careful and just go in, taking the bone folder and doing the same thing on the inside. Like I said, this is going to cause us to lose some of that definition on the outside. But we're going to go back in and redo it when we're done. And I'm doing this, I'm using the tension of the card in there to help push outwards, and I'm holding, see how I've got my fingertip there? I'm using my fingertip as a fence, and I'm running my fingertip along the outside edge to make sure that that bone folder doesn't skip from where it is. So as long as my fingertip is up against that edge, the bone folder should stay equidistant from it. Strong emphasis on should. That's not a guarantee. You still have to be careful. But Matt, I got to thank you for taking me to the Henry Ford Museum, where I got to see that car in person. That definitely put the seed back in my head. Like I said, I wanted to do this for a while with these colors, but seeing that brought it back into sharp focus for me. Thank you for that. It was a delightful trip. I actually got approached by an account called Visit Detroit wanting to use my pictures. I don't think they've done it yet, but maybe they will. We'll see. So we're just going back over, like I said, anytime you do something to the inside, you lose something on the outside and vice versa. So we're just going to go back and try to redefine that a little bit. There we go. Hot damn. Here's the inside. So the inside looks good on its own. I really like that perforation. I'm excited to work more with that. And then on the outside, you get that. Damn, I like that. Take him to Detroit. You know what? You know what's good in Detroit? Good food, good pizza. Good pizza in Detroit. I'm pretty happy with that. You know, I expected. I even said so at the start. I expected to be somewhat disappointed by the outcome of the day. And I'll tell you what, I'm not. I like it. I'm pretty damn happy with it. That for an experiment like this, that doesn't happen too often. So when that happens, you gotta take it when you can get it. I'll be damned. I'm having trouble believing I did that. Good golly. Good golly. I like that. I can't wait to take pictures of this one. If I had to do one thing different, I wish I would have picked a different section of green, because I got a little bit of loose grain here. A little bit of crinkling there that I just don't like. But you know what? I'm going to call it a victory. I still got to burnish the edge yet, but I'm going to do that off camera. I think I'm going to get some lunch, have a throat lozenge, and call it a day here. Thank you all for joining me for this. This was something of an adventure. I didn't really know how this was going to go. And as is evidenced by all the screwing around earlier, I really didn't. So if you don't believe me, just go back about an hour and a half and watch all that mess. But it turned out nice. I'm happy with this. I think I'm gonna end up listing this one for sale. I don't know what for yet. So figure that out one. I thank you, Oil Boss. I liked those too. I wanted to get back to doing that. Um, I'm pretty happy with that. I like that. That's rewarding. That's a rewarding thing right there. I'm glad you guys joined me for that. I'm glad I got to share that with you. I'm going to go start cleaning up the workbench. As usual, I'll give it a couple minutes. If you have any questions about anything or anything you want to ask me or say, now would be the time. I'm going to give about another 2 or 3 minutes to clean the bench up and answer any questions. So please do if you have any. And a special shout out to Mr. Bob, both for being so kind as to trust me with his order for the past 2 weeks, but also for his very kind thank you note today. So appreciate that very much. Thank you for the companionship with that. It was good on both ends, I think. So I'm glad to hear it. But yeah, any questions about what we did today or anything at all, please do let me know. Like I said, we got a couple minutes here before I shut it down. I'm gonna eat some lunch. Nothing like lunch at 3 o'clock. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate. I'm glad you were able to join today. It was good to have you here. It was damn good to have my friends here today. spool up here. Yeah, this one's done in. There's enough left to get some use from it for some little application. Good one. Nice. Nice. That's how I know it's time to call it a day. When you start turning into Butterfingers, it's time to go. On that note, it looks like everybody's got what they had to say out of them. Unless YouTube is screwing up again, in which case you've asked something and I didn't see it, and I apologize, but I am going to call it a day here. Once again, I thank you again for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you all next week. I'll post some pictures of this one on Instagram, and you guys can check it out. So thank you very much for the company today. Always a pleasure. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the day.